أن الأصل التساوي في المغنم والمغرم, which is that the asl, the default general principle is that there has to be equality in loss or gain, in profit or loss. It has to be equal. Especially if, in terms of business, I put in 50%, you put in 50%, the same amount. So that is the asl. However, if they agree upon something else, then that is different. If they agree upon something else, that is different. Like, and that is the asl. طيب. فدخل في هذا. Now the Shaykh is going to mention every sharika. And alhamdulillah, you already know, so the Shaykh is going to mention the definition and that's it. And I'm going to mention an example. فدخل في هذا, and from amongst that is what? شركة العنان. شركة العنان. وهي, and شركة العنان is what? أن يكون من كل منهما, that there is from both of them, from Ali and from Muhammad, مال وعمل. They both have amal and they both have mal. So they've chipped in 100,000 each, and the business cost 200,000, or the shop, the initial starting off was what? 200,000. Each chipped in 100,000. So they're what? Equal in money. They both put in money. وعمل, and also in terms of the action, يعني the labor. So مثلا they want to open up a maktaba. Muhammad puts in 50%, Ali puts in 50%. And then they both work in the maktaba. When it comes to dealing with suppliers, when it comes to traveling maybe to book fairs in Egypt, in Saudi, going to book fairs and coming back and making sure that the books are in stock and so on. They're both working there. So that is called what? Sharikatul Inan. And it is permissible bil ijma'. It is permissible bil ijma'. And there's no khilaf in the fact that this is permissible. That this is permissible. So with regards to the profit, how is it going to be divided? Number one, whatever they agree upon, or whatever is the urf, the norm. Whatever they agree upon, and whatever is the norm. المسلمون على شروطهم. طيب. So again, that goes back to مثلا if they open up a maktaba, a shop, or even a madrasa, for example, they say we're going to hire out a masjid, and we're going to pay مثلا on a monthly basis. The masjid wants us to pay 500 rent. طيب. They pay 500 rent, and they're both teachers at the madrasa. Is that understood? They're both teachers at the madrasa. What happens? When it comes to the profit, they're both going to they're going to take the same amount of profit. Why? Because they've both paid the rent for the initial land, or the masjid, or the center, and when it comes to the action, or when it comes to the labor, they're both working in the madrasa. Is that understood? طيب. وشركة المضاربة. The second is شركة المضاربة. So مضاربة is بأن يكون من أحدهما المال, that one of them provides the mal. طيب. So one of them, so the business costs 200,000 to start off. One of them pays 200,000. ومن الآخر العمل. And the other one is going to actually work in the store, or he is going to do the labor work, whether it's going from one place to another, whether it's buying, selling, whatever it may be. Whatever labor or action that business requires, then that person, the second party, is going to do all of the labor. Is that understood? And one of them is going to be paying مثلا, one of them is paying the amount up front. Now this is permissible, although there's no specific dalil from the Quran or the Sunnah saying or mentioning this. Lakin the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Al-Muslimun ala shurudihim." Number one. Also, what was the qa'idatul bab? Qa'idatul bab. The qa'ida of this chapter was what? Al-aslu fil ashya'i al-hil. When I say qa'idatul bab, it means the principle that this chapter is built upon, which is qa'idatul bab, which is al-aslu fil ashya'i al-ibaha. Hil. طيب. So when it comes to mudaraba, is permissible in terms of the asl being, but also when you look at it from a logical point of view, a person may have a lot of wealth, lakin he doesn't know how to invest in that. He doesn't know how to use it. He's not a businessman. He doesn't know how to invest in it. طيب. So if it stays in his bank account, he's not going to profit or he's not going to benefit from it. Lakin if he gives it to someone else who knows how to take advantage of money, who knows how to do business, and is well versed in investments, financial investments, then there's a profit or there's a benefit, there's a maslaha, a benefit for both the one that is funding the actual project and the one that is working in the project. Is that understood? طيب. طيب. Like when it comes to losses, or firstly, that could be mudaraba which is mutlaq or mudaraba which is muqayyad. Mutlaq or muqayyad. For example, a person says, I'm going to give you 200,000 to start off the business, lakin you can only work in, for example, in a certain field. You can only work in a certain field. مثلا, I want you to buy and sell cars. Or he says, I want you to work in a certain place. I only want you to work in the UK. I don't want you to travel abroad with my money. That is muqayyad, that is restricted. So the person that is working on the other side, that is actually working, he must abide by those conditions laid out for the person, laid out by the person that is funding the project. Or it could be unrestricted, mutlaq. He can say, listen, do whatever you feel is beneficial. Whatever there's a maslaha in it for me and for you, then do it. Khalas. Whether it's traveling abroad, whether it's in cars, whether you're investing in homes, whether it's a travel agency, whatever it may be. I only want the profit. Is that understood? Lakin, when it comes to the day-to-day running of the business, for example, the storage or transferring the goods and all of that, who pays? The one that was actually funding the project himself, or the business. He's the one that pays. As for the other one, his only responsibility is the day-to-day running of the business. His physical labor, that is what he's responsible for. Right. Also, if anything should happen to the business, he doesn't have to, the person, the laborer, he doesn't have to, he's not liable for anything that may happen. Why? Because his hand is yadul amana. And the only way that the yadul amana, the trustee, the person who is entrusted, the only way he has to pay compensation and he's liable is if what? Ta'addi or tafrid. Ta'addi or tafrid. What is ta'addi? Ta'addi is fi'lu ma la yajib. Fi'lu ma la yajuz. Fi'lu ma la yajuz. And sisters, what is tafrid? ترك ما يجب, leaving off that which you were meant to do. طيب. شركة المضاربة. Then the Shaykh says, وشركة الوجوه بما يأخذان بوجوههما من الناس. Also the third type of sharika, or the third type of partnership, is شركة الوجوه. And wujuh means wajh, reputation. The reputation, due to the reputation they have, they're able to borrow money from people, and they're able to make a business of it, although they don't have any capital and any starting off funds. So wajh comes from the wajh. Allah Jalla wa Ala says, وَجِيهًا فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ وَمِنَ الْمُقَرَّبِينَ. He held honor, talking about Isa alayhi salam. طيب. So they don't have any money, lakin because of the reputation that they have, they're well known for being good at business. Then a person gives them the money that they need, borrows it to them, and then they start their business. It may not be cash, it may be goods that they take. It may be goods that they take. Questions after. Questions after. Questions at the end of the class, inshallah. طيب. نعم. نعم. شركة الوجوه. طيب. بمالهما يأخذان من الناس. طيب. مثلا, if two people are known for being bankrupt, They've started 5 businesses and every business ended up with bankruptcy. Is anyone going to lend them any money? La. Like if a person has a business or two and they're known for being good at buying and selling, business transactions and so on, and business dealings, then obviously people are going to lend them out whatever they need. طيب. The 4th type is sharikatul abdan. Sharikatul abdan, and it is also called sharikatul amal. Sharikatul amal. And it is بأن يشتركا, that they both take part in what? بما يكتسبان بأبدانهما. They both take part and they take, in terms of the profit, whatever they obtain of profit. من المباحات, from those things that are mubah. حشيش ونحو, من حشيش ونحوه. And hashish is, you know, the grass on the floor and that, not obviously drugs. It's not saying that there. So if you ever seen the fuqaha, books of the fuqaha, and they mention hashish al-ard, don't think the fuqaha are drug dealers. وَنَحْوِهِ وَمَا يَتَقَبَّلَانِ مِنَ الْأَعْمَالِ, and also whatever they're able to do in terms of actions, whatever they're able to do in terms of dealings. Who can give me an example? I'll give you an example. مثلا, the example of the madrasa. There's 2 of them and they've got ijazat in the Quran. And they say, listen, we're going to sit in a place, we're going to hire an office, and whatever profit we obtain, whatever profit we gain, then between me and you. Or مثلا, we're going to sell fish. We're going to go fishing. Whatever profit we have, then inshallah we go 50s. We go 50-50. The Sahaba, some of the Sahaba, Ammar bin Yasir, Abdillah bin Mas'ud, and another companion, I think it was Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqas rahimahullah wa radiyallahu anhu. One of the battles they went into partnership, and whatever ghanima that they would take would be between them. As you know, the mujahid, whatever he gets from the person that he kills, then he keeps it. Salb, they call it. طيب. So 3 of them is that question. That questions are at the end, because I want to finish this chapter and the next chapter, inshallah. So what they done was they had a partnership. Ammar ibn Yasir radiallahu anhu, I believe it was Ammar ibn Yasir, he obtained a few items, a shield and a horse or something like that. The other 2 did not obtain anything. They still shared the profit. They still took part in the profit of whatever it was that Ammar ibn Yasir had. So that is 2 people working together, مثلا in the workshop, and whatever profit they gain, then they share the profits. For example, 2 mechanics, and they work in a workshop. Then they fix cars. So whatever profit they gain, they share. Who can give me an example of sharikatul al-abdan? Any example? Excellent. 2 people cut down trees and then they use it as hatab. Hatab يعني coal. And then they sell it on. صح? طيب. Another example? Someone said an example for me. If they work in a bookshop, if they work in a bookshop or in a library, and then they share whatever they profit. طيب. وما يتقبلان إننا الأعمال طيب. والشركة المفاوضة. The next type, شركة المفاوضة. It is وهي الجامعة لجميع ذلك كلها جائزة. لا لجميع ذلك وكلها جائزة. طيب. So شركة المفاوضة is literally all of these sharikat put together. They share in the money, they share in the action, the labor, and they share in probably renting out or obtaining a debt with their wujuh. So all of these put together. So sharikatul mufawada. And the Shaykh says, لِجَمِيعِ ذَلِكَ وَكُلُّهَا جَائِزَةٌ. And all of these 5 types are permissible. All of these 5 types are permissible. Is that understood? So these are the how many? 5. طيب. وَيُفْسِدُهَا. Now the Shaykh is going to go into what nullifies these transactions. He says, وَيُفْسِدُهَا. What does it become spoilt with or nullified with? إِذَا دَخَلَهَا الظُّلْمُ. If any one of them oppresses the other, وَالْغَرَرُ لِأَحَدِهِمَا. Or if there's ambiguity and uncertainty in the profit, for example, or مثلا, we'll profit whatever we want, or I'll give you whatever we get from the profit, or مثلا, they specify a certain amount, you'll get 10,000 of the profit. We said at the beginning that is not what? Permissible. That is not permissible. Ta'yin, yani specifically saying you're going to take 10,000 or I'm going to take 10,000. That is not permissible because there's ambiguity and yani jahala and gharar in there. And remember when we were at the muqaddimah, right at the beginning of the chapter, the Shaykh mentioned the conditions of what? Of bay'. And one of them was Adam al-Jahala wal-Gharar, sah? That you can't be uncertain of what? The amount of profit that you're going to gain or attain. كأن يكون لأحدهما ربح وقت معين. So this is just a repetition of what I mentioned earlier on. كأن يكون لأحدهما, like one of them saying that one of them takes ربح وقت معين. He takes the profit from a certain period. For example, the winter season, I'm going to take the profit from the winter season and you're going to take the profit from the summer season. Is this permissible? Huh? Sulaiman, it's permissible, sah? Okay, why is it permissible?
One of them, there's a time, specific time, he will take his riba. And the other one, there's no specific time for him.
Huh?
It says, لأحدهما ربح وقت معين ولآخر
ربح وقت آخر. Like what does the Shaykh say before that? ويفسدها إذا دخلها ظلم والغرر لأحدهما كأن يكون, like if. So that is not permissible to say I'm going to take the summer season and winter season. Questions after, yeah? See, Naam, there's gharar inside the season. You don't know, like maybe you can profit a lot in the winter, maybe nothing in the summer. Or the opposite, you may profit more in the summer because it's a tourist season. Tourism is high in the summer season, therefore you may profit more. Whereas in the winter season, you may not profit anything. طيب. Naam, so that is not permissible to say I'm going to take the profit of a certain time, a specific season. وَلِلْآخِرِ رِبْحُ وَقْتٍ آخَرٍ أو ربح إحدى السلعتين أو إحدى السفرتين. And it is not permissible likewise to say, listen, for example, if a person has a book, if a person has a shop and they sell books, they sell perfume, and they sell mobile phones. They cannot say, right, I'm going to take the profit that comes in from the books and you take the profit that comes in from the from the books and you take the profit that comes in from the mobile phones. Why is that not permissible, sisters? Huh? There's gharar in there, there's ambiguities, uncertainty. You don't know which one's going to be, which one's going to profit more. Maybe the person that's selling the books or the profit from the books could be a loss. You may not profit anything. You may not benefit anything. Like in mobile phones, it can be sky high. Therefore, that agreement is fasid. It is not permissible. وَمَا يُشْبِهُ ذَلِكَ. نعم. سفرتين أو إحدى سفرتين. What they mean is, يعني if a person has a bookstore, for example, طيب, and a person says they have 2 safars coming in every year, meaning two loads coming in every single year. For example, someone goes to the book fair in Egypt, and another goes to the book fair in Riyadh, مثلا. One of them goes to the book fair in Egypt, and the other goes to the book fair in Saudi Arabia. So it's not permissible to say that, right, I'm going to take all of the benefit that we get from the book fair in Egypt, and you take the profit that we get from the book fair from Saudi. And why is that not permissible? One can be more than the other. What I'm saying now, when I keep saying, why is this not permissible? Why is this not permissible? That is called ta'lilat. Ta'lil, meaning reasoning. And that is extremely important in al-fiqh al-Islami. Al-fiqh al-Islami, that is extremely important because sometimes there may not be a clear hadith for that specific mas'ala. Like when you look at the general principles, the ta'lil means that it is permissible or it is impermissible. طيب. نعم. Then the Shaykh says, كما يفسد ذلك المساقات والمزارعة. He mentions musaqat and muzara'a. We're going to mention, he's going to mention that literally after. It's one of them is hiring out a tree and the other is hiring out a land. But you can't use or you can't apply what the Shaykh just said. Meaning everything that the Shaykh said for sharikat is not permissible. It is also not permissible in musaqat and muzara'a, which is about to come. For example, you can't say, I'm going to take the profit for the winter season, you're going to take the profit for the summer season. طيب. وقال رافع بن خديج رحمة الله عليه ورضي الله عنه كان الناس يؤاجرون على عهد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم على ماديانات وأقبال الجداول وأشياء من الزرع فيهلك هذا ويسلم هذا ويسلم هذا ويهلك هذا ولم يكن للناس كراء إلا هذا. طيب. So the Shaykh rahimahullah mentions this hadith to prove that whatever agreement you have or whatever you agree upon, it has to be something that is ma'loom, something that is known. It has to be something that is known. So the Shaykh says, he mentions this hadith. In this hadith, this companion radiallahu anhu, he says that in the past what the people would do, they would lease land. They would lease out land, banks of large rivers and beginnings of water streams and so on. They would lease some parts of their land. وَأَشْيَاء مِنَ الزَّرْعِ. And they would also, and other items to do, other things to do with zara'a, harvesting and so on. Lakin, sometimes the harvest for this season would be ruined, and sometimes it would not be ruined. Lakin, the person would still be expected to pay however much it would be for him to pay, however much was expected for him in terms of profit and in terms of loss. In terms of profit and in terms of loss. So the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam prohibited them from that. And then he said, فَأَمَّا شَيْءٌ مَعْلُومٌ مَطْمُونٌ فَلَا بَأْسَ بِهِ. فَأَمَّا الشَّيْء, as for the shay that is ma'loom, مثلا the rent, or the profit that is ma'loom, that is known, that is also madmoon, that is guaranteed, then there is no harm in that. Then there is no harm in that. So he uses this hadith as evidence for the masail that had preceded. And you're probably used to Manhaj Saalikeen now. The Shaykh mainly mentions the masail and then the evidence at the end of the chapter. Right. So that is Bab al-Sharika. The Shaykh is now going to go into Bab al-Musaqat wal-Muzara'a. Musaqat and Muzara'a. And he mentions this along with the chapter just before it because in it, it is a form of partnership. So it's sharecropping. Or you're sharing the crops, the benefit, the harms, the profits, or the profit that you would gain from that season. You're sharing it. That's why the Shaykh rahimahullah mentions it with sharika. So it is a type of mu'amala that is sharika. وعامل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, and the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم, he contracted with أهل خيبر بشطر ما يخرج منها من ثمر أو زرع متفق عليه. So in the place of Khaybar, the Am Khaybar, the place of Khaybar, where the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the companions went to jihad, after they opened it up and there was fath, right? The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam agreed with the people of that land that whatever profit that they would gain from the fruits and the plants, half of it would be for the Muslims. Half of it would be given to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Muslims. Is that understood? The Mahallu Shahid is bishabri, half of, whatever that half may be. If there's a loss, then obviously there's nothing. If the profits are decent, then half of that decent. If the profit is a lot, then half of that a lot, wherever it may be. So this goes back to bishadri, it goes back to when we were talking about a few minutes ago, that the profit, when you're allocating the profit or mentioning the profit, it has to be something which is that you can pinpoint. For example, to say 50% or 30% or 100 or 80%. regardless. Or shadr, a nisf. Shadr means nisf, half. Like if you say, I'm going to take, مثلا, whatever comes out, these 3 trees, or the dates from these 3 trees, and you can take the rest, then that is not permissible. Why not? Why is that not permissible? You don't know, yani. These 3 can have tons of dates, and everything else could be spoilt by a storm. A blight might befall it. طيب. متفق عليه. Now he's going to explain what musaqat and muzara'a is. فالمساقات مساقة is that you agree upon على شجر المساقات على شجر أن يدفعها للعامل ويقوم عليها بجزء مشاع معلوم من الثمرة. That a person مثلا has a tree or has trees. مثلا a person has a massive farm and he has a lot of trees, palm trees, مثلا the date palm for example, and he says, I'm going to give you these يعني مثلا 20 of my trees, each one of them has its own dates and so on. يدفعها للعامل, he gives it to the laborer, ويقوم عليها, and the laborer, he's the one that looks after it, he waters it, he looks after it on a day-to-day basis. Lakin what is it in it for him? بجزء مشاع معلوم من الثمرة. He takes a specific amount that is known from the Prophet. Surah al-Mas'ala, is that understood? Surah al-Mas'ala, a person owns a tree or trees. Now this person may be busy. He may not have time he may have a shop. He may be a talib al-ilm. He does not have time to maintain these trees. Lakin he hires out someone who's well versed in that field, and he says, listen, you take these trees, look after these trees. Obviously he's not going to take the trees, like he's going to look after the trees. He's got access to the farm and so on, and his garden, he's got access to it. And he says, whatever profit we gain, then you take 20% or 30%. That is what musaqa is. طيب. والمزارعة, and muzara'a is that you give out land. بأن يدفع الأرض لمن يزرعها بجزء. You give out the actual land, not the tree. You actually give out the land. لمن يزرعها, to a person that knows, obviously is well versed in harvesting and so on, and when to put the season of harvest and when to put the seeds in and so on, and that can cultivate that and can maintain that farm or that garden. So now you're not giving a tree, or you're not renting out a tree, like you're what? You're giving this person a whole farm. You may not even live in that country. You may be somewhere else. So for example, maybe it was inheritance. You have no idea what your father was working upon on this field. Like, can you give it out to someone that can benefit from it? Like, he has what? بجزء مشاع معلوم من الزرع. And he takes a certain amount of the harvest. For example, as soon as the harvest season enters, then he takes 50% or 40% of the fruits of whatever food comes out of that garden or that farm. Is that understood? وَعَلَى كُلٍّ مِّنْهُمَا مَا جَرَتِ الْعَادَةُ بِهِ. And upon every single one of them is whatever is known, whatever is the custom, meaning the urf, or what is known as the urf, what is known as the customarily normal dealing when it comes to the park or the garden or the farm. And obviously the condition is al-Muslimuna ala shurudihim, that is the qa'idah. Whatever they agree upon, that is whatever profit that person takes and whatever labor that he does. Depending on what they agree upon. طيب. The last mas'ala the Shaykh says rahimahullah is وَالشَّرْطُ الَّذِي لَا جَهَالَةَ فِيهَا, and the condition also, the shart, that's connected to the other. وَالشَّرْطُ الَّذِي لَا جَهَالَةَ فِيهَا, any condition is permissible as long as there's no what? Jahala and ambiguity in it. وَلَوْ دَفَعَ دَابَتَهُ إِلَى آخَرَ يَعْمَلُ عَلَيْهَا وَمَا حَصَّلَ بَيْنَهُمَا جَازٍ. وَلَوْ دَفَعَ, if a person gives out dabba, he gives out his dabba. What does dabba mean here? ما دب على الأرض. طيب ما دب على الأرض. And you said Abdullah? دابة يعني ولو دفع دابته an animal that he uses for work like a donkey. And Muhammad said ما دب على anything that strikes the earth. طيب sisters in the input ولو دفع دابته. We've got 5 minutes or 2 minutes. دابة a four-legged animal. There. Why did I ask? It came up in Usul al-Fiqh. It came up in Usul al-Fiqh. طيب. So if we were to go upon Muhammad's explanation, Muhammad has understood dabba in its linguistical form or its urfi form. Linguistic form. And Abdullah said, Abdullah and the sister, they said a four-legged animal or whatever he uses for work. Not only work, like in social pleasure and so on. طيب. Abdullah understood it from a linguistical حقيقة عرفية or حقيقة لغوية عرفية. طيب. Which one is wrong and which one's right? Your one's right. Well, you would say that, huh?
Because of the siyaq, we're talking about al-mu'amal and bay'. So it's the siyaq that explains it.
The siyaq, okay. What else? The context. What else? No, we're studying fiqh here. We're studying fiqh. So it goes back to dabba, meaning whatever that person uses as a riding beast. Also, even the car. A car. Hadi dabbati, someone can say. Referring to a car. So a dabba is anything that is used for work or that is used for pleasure, to get around and so on. So that is one of the benefits of usul and fiqh being connected. Usul al-fiqh and fiqh, they're connected, obviously. Usul al-fiqh, it serves fiqh. You can't study one with foreign to the other. So if a person gives his riding beast to another person and he says whatever profit we attain from it, then inshallah we go halves on it or whatever amount, 50%, 60%, whatever it may be. So for example, I may have a car and I can say, right, I'm going to rent out my car. I'm going to rent out my car on a monthly basis. So this car belongs to me, like, and I'm going to rent it out to the brothers and they can use it they can hire it out. Or I give it to Abdullah and I say, Abdullah, I give you this car and you rent it out to other people. You rent it out or you drive them wherever they may need. Have you heard of, some vans there, van and man hire, sah? Or man and van hire, something like that. So you're hiring the van and the man. That van may belong to someone else. Like in later on, when it comes to the Prophet, then obviously they take it, depending on whatever they agree upon, whether it's 50%, 60%, whatever agreement they have, the owner and the person that is actually carrying out the work. So that's the end of this chapter for fiqh. Questions that you couldn't wait. Zubayr. So the brother said, Hafidhahullah, when I said the example of someone going to the book fair in Egypt and another person going to the book fair in Saudi Arabia, and then we say whatever profit we get from this place, from Egypt, I'm going to take the profit. Whatever profit we get from Saudi, you take the profit. He said, what if the books are exactly the same? What is the answer? Who can answer it from the sisters? We need an answer. Is that permissible if the books are exactly the same? Mathalan, from Egypt he gets 100 copies of Manhaj Saalikeen, and Saudi Arabia he gets 100 copies of Manhaj Saalikeen, exactly the same. Why is it permissible for them to have the same amount, or to say I'm going to take the Egypt load and you take the Saudi load? Is that permissible? Huh? Oh, different prices. So the brother said, listen, he said to me, Ustad, you said that you can't say that whatever profit you benefit from in their book fair, and we have a maktaba here in East London. Two shopkeepers, they own this maktaba. One of them goes to Egypt, he gets the books, brings them to the maktaba. Another one, in a few months' time, is going to go to Saudi and he's going to get books. It's not permissible, I said initially, it's not permissible to say, whatever profit comes out of the Egypt book fair, I'm going to take. Whatever profit comes out of the Saudi book fair, you're going to take. We said that is not permissible, sah? Right. So the brother is saying, what if you're selling exactly the same amount of books, same titles, everything? I'm saying it's not permissible. He's saying, why is that not permissible?
I think there's no ambiguity with the product, but there's ambiguity in the time.
The time, okay, there's ambiguity in the time.
You don't control the demand.
You don't control the demand, so, and it goes back to what? Uncertainty, the profit. Tayyib, you get 100 copies of Manhaj Saalikeen from Egypt, you get 100 copies of Manhaj Saalikeen, same book, same number, the same amount, from Saudi Arabia. Understood? Tayyib, there may be a conference, for example, straight after the book fair of Egypt that I got the load from, there may be a summer dawra on Manhaj Saalikeen. So obviously all of the students are going to buy Manhaj Saalikeen. So they're going to buy 100 copies or maybe even more. So they're going to buy the book. Like after the Saudi Arabia, the Saudi book fair, he brings 100 copies of Manhaj Saalikeen. Might not even get anyone that's doing Manhaj Saalikeen. We might say we're starting Zad al-Mustaqna. So there's not going to be a need for Manhaj Saalikeen. So there's ambiguity in the Prophet. And wherever there's ambiguity in the Prophet, it is not permissible. Is that understood?